They don't notice your worth when you're around them every day. They only notice it when you disappear, because human nature is designed to devalue what is accessible, to forget what is constant, and to crave what it cannot fully possess. Availability kills mystery, and mystery is the heartbeat of power. To be unavailable is to place yourself in a realm where your presence becomes a privilege, not a routine. Most people exhaust their energy trying to stay relevant in every room, every conversation, every message thread. They believe that being seen keeps them safe from being forgotten. But the truth is colder. The more they see you, the less they feel you. Presence without restraint turns your energy into background noise. Silence, distance, and scarcity are what transform you into a symbol instead of a participant. To withdraw is to teach others the true weight of your existence. The moment you make yourself less accessible, you change the dynamic. The power shifts. They begin to wonder. They replay your words, your gestures, the way you looked at them before you disappeared. They analyze your silence because silence is a mirror that reflects their own insecurities, and that reflection forces them to confront what they lost. There's a reason kings live behind walls, why leaders are rarely seen walking among the crowd. Visibility breeds familiarity, familiarity breeds comfort, and comfort kills respect. When people can reach you whenever they want, they stop valuing the effort it takes to keep you. To be unavailable is not arrogance, it's strategy. It is the discipline of saying no to the pull of constant interaction, of protecting your energy from those who only consume but never contribute. When you pull back, you create a void. And human psychology cannot stand a void. They will try to fill it with thoughts of you, stories about you, and projections of what you might be doing. The less they know, the more they imagine. And in imagination, you always become larger than life. That is the secret most people never learn. Distance magnifies presence. To master unavailability, you must first master solitude. You must become comfortable in your own company, unbothered by silence, unafraid of being misunderstood. Because the unavailable are often accused of coldness, detachment, pride. But underneath that accusation is envy. Envy of your self-sufficiency. When you are no longer driven by the need to prove, explain, or justify, you become unpredictable. You are no longer defined by reaction but by choice. You move when you decide, not when they summon you. That's the invisible line that separates the powerful from the desperate, control of one's availability. You see, the world has taught people to associate attention with affection, but the wise know that attention is not love, it's hunger. And hunger can be manipulative. The moment you make yourself scarce, people's true intentions surface. Those who are only feeding off your energy will disappear. Those who value your essence will wait. Detachment becomes your filter. It protects you from emotional chaos disguised as connection. But make no mistake, the price of being unavailable is real. You will be misunderstood. People will label you distant, unfeeling, or too proud. You'll lose those who crave constant reassurance, because your silence will terrify them. But what you gain is infinitely more valuable. You gain peace, you gain clarity, you gain respect from those who recognize strength in stillness. You'll notice that when you stop explaining yourself, the world rearranges its perception of you. You'll be seen as disciplined, mysterious, even intimidating, and that's fine. Power is never comfortable. It creates distance by nature. That distance is what keeps your value intact. Being unavailable teaches people how to treat you. It forces them to approach with intention instead of impulse. And that changes everything. The one who is constantly accessible becomes predictable. The predictable can be controlled, but the one who knows when to withdraw, when to be silent, when to vanish, that one cannot be tamed. The energy of the unavailable is magnetic because it carries a subtle message. I don't need you to exist. And that message awakens curiosity, even obsession, in those who have built their lives around validation. They'll begin to chase your silence because it feels like rejection, and rejection activates desire. You become the mirror of their own insecurity, the object of their unresolved craving for approval. It's not manipulation, it's nature. Humans are wired to want what they can't have. To be unavailable is to turn that instinct into your ally instead of your enemy. But here's the paradox. You can only be truly unavailable when you no longer care about being wanted. Detachment is not pretending. It's self-sufficiency. It's realizing that your peace is worth more than their attention, that your presence loses its power when it's wasted on the unworthy. The unavailable understand something profound. They don't chase what's easily lost. They value depth over noise, intention over attention, and peace over popularity. While the world shouts, they move in silence. While others post to be seen, they disappear to become powerful. You will notice that when you stop explaining, apologizing, or constantly showing up, your energy returns to you. You stop being drained by meaningless interactions and start observing from a distance. Observation is the throne of power. It allows you to see the patterns of those who try to pull you in. It teaches you how to act without being reactive. The unavailable act from understanding, not emotion. They move when it benefits them, not when pressured by others. That's why the unavailable are feared, because they cannot be emotionally blackmailed. You can't control what doesn't crave your approval, and that's where freedom begins. Freedom from the constant noise of validation, freedom from the addiction to being understood, freedom from the fear of being forgotten. The unavailable live differently. They know that those who truly matter will find their way back, and those who don't were never meant to stay. They don't cling, they don't chase, they observe, and in that stillness, they accumulate energy, emotional, mental, spiritual. When they reappear, they do so with force. Their presence feels heavy because it's not constant. It's intentional. That's what separates power from performance. Performance seeks attention. Power creates it without trying. You can spend your life trying to be everywhere, or you can choose to be nowhere until it truly matters. Unavailability is not withdrawal from life, it's precision in presence. It's showing up only where your energy multiplies instead of divides. It's knowing that attention is a currency, and only fools spend it freely. The wise invest it. The unavailable are investors of attention. They understand timing. They know that mystery is built in absence, not exposure. You cannot be desired if you are always seen. You cannot be respected if you are always explaining. Your strength must be felt, not advertised. That's the essence of power. To influence without noise, to speak without words, to move without warning. When you master that, you transcend the need for validation. You stop competing. You stop proving. You begin to attract those who move on your wavelength and calm, composed, deliberate. And you'll realize that being unavailable is not about arrogance or superiority. It's about preservation. You preserve your energy so that when you appear, it means something. The crowd may forget what is always visible, but they remember what is rare. You become unforgettable not by being constant, but by being scarce. Because scarcity forces the mind to hold on. Every time you withdraw, you give people a chance to miss you. Every time you go silent, you allow your absence to speak louder than any explanation ever could. That's the paradoxical beauty of being unavailable. You become more present by being gone. You are not rejecting the world. You are refining your place within it. And those who truly see you will understand that your silence is not distance. It's discipline, because what's rare must protect itself. And those who understand that truth no longer chase being seen. They build value in the shadows. They let curiosity do the work. They become the quiet storm that moves through rooms without speaking, yet leaves everyone unsettled. That's the price of being unavailable, but also its reward. You pay with misunderstanding. You earn with respect. You lose temporary attention, but gain permanent gravity. You stop being another noise in the crowd and become the silence everyone feels, but can't explain. That's real power. The moment you decide to become unavailable, you begin to threaten the system that thrives on your constant participation. The world today worships accessibility, instant replies, constant updates, endless exposure. They tell you that if you're not visible, you're irrelevant. But that's a lie created by those who fear losing control over your attention. They want you plugged in, reacting, responding, explaining, because a reactive person is predictable, and a predictable person is powerless. To detach from that noise is to reclaim your autonomy. You start to see how desperately people depend on each other's validation loops just to feel alive. It's a quiet kind of slavery, the addiction to being noticed. You think you're connecting, but you're actually leaking. Every conversation that doesn't feed your mind drains it. Every obligation you accept out of guilt diminishes your time. Every unnecessary yes steals a piece of your focus. The power of being unavailable is that it breaks this cycle. It reminds you that not every invitation deserves a response, not every opinion deserves your attention, not every demand deserves your energy. Unavailability is a filter that protects your inner world from contamination. It is the art of choosing your own rhythm in a world that profits from your distraction. People will resist this. They'll call you distant, arrogant, or detached, but those are the words of the dependent, the ones who fear what they cannot access. When you pull back, you force others to confront their own emptiness. Your silence becomes a mirror that reflects their neediness, and that reflection is uncomfortable. They begin to ask themselves, why does this person's absence bother me so much? That's when you know your presence has power, because true presence doesn't need to be constant. It lingers even when you're gone. Think about it. The most powerful figures in history were not available to everyone. They spoke rarely, but when they did, the world listened. They appeared briefly, but when they did, the atmosphere changed. Their unavailability gave their presence weight. That's not coincidence, it's psychology. The rarer something is, the more value it holds. When you make yourself scarce, you activate the law of demand. People start to measure your presence differently. They remember your words longer. They attach more meaning to your silence. They wonder what you're doing, who you're with, and what occupies your thoughts. You become a story they tell themselves, an image they can't quite erase. That's the beginning of quiet influence, when your absence controls the room more than your presence ever could. But here's the hard truth. Unavailability requires strength. It means resisting the temptation to explain your silence. It means letting people misinterpret your distance. It means walking away from situations that feed your ego but starve your peace. You will lose those who thrive on your availability. The needy, the controlling, the insecure. They will drift away because your silence doesn't feed their appetite for reassurance. Let them. Their departure is not a loss, it's purification. Each person who leaves because of your unavailability is making room for those who understand your value. Those who respect your space will never demand constant access to it. They'll approach you with care, not entitlement. That's the difference between connection and consumption. Most relationships today are built on consumption. People don't want to connect with you. They want to consume your energy, your time, your attention. They want to feel significant by pulling you into their chaos. Unavailability breaks that pattern. It teaches people to approach you with purpose, not impulse. They learn that your time has value because it's not infinite. They learn that your silence has meaning because it's not empty. You stop being a convenience and become a choice. That shift is where real power begins, but it comes with solitude. You'll notice that when you stop chasing, the noise around you fades. The silence will feel strange at first, heavy even, because you've been conditioned to fill every quiet moment with distraction. But if you can endure that stillness long enough, something profound happens. Your thoughts begin to organize themselves. You begin to hear your own intuition again. You start to feel peace where there used to be pressure. You realize how much energy you wasted trying to be everywhere for everyone. The unavailable live differently. They walk slower, think deeper, and move with precision. They don't respond instantly because they are not controlled by urgency. They don't explain themselves because their actions are rooted in clarity. When they speak, it's not to be liked, it's to be understood. And when they act, it's not to impress, it's to align with their vision. That's why unavailability is the foundation of self-mastery. It allows you to act from your center, not from the expectations of others. You begin to sense when your presence adds value and when it's being exploited. You start to measure your time like a scarce resource, not an endless supply. And when you live like that, everything changes. People begin to approach you differently. Their tone softens. Their eyes search for your reaction. They realize that they can't predict you anymore, and unpredictability is power. Because the one who cannot be anticipated cannot be controlled. You start to move through life like a quiet storm, calm but impossible to ignore. The weak will misunderstand you. They'll think your silence is indifference, but the wise will recognize it as discipline. They'll sense that your detachment is not a lack of feeling but an abundance of control. You're not running away. You're choosing when to appear. That choice defines your worth. When you no longer rush to respond, you're signaling that your time is sacred. When you decline invitations that drain you, you're signaling that your energy has value. When you disappear for periods of reflection, you're signaling that you no longer seek validation. Each act of unavailability is a declaration of sovereignty. You're telling the world that your peace is non-negotiable, and that message resonates deeply, even with those who don't understand it. Over time, people begin to respect you not because you demand it, but because you embody it. They adjust their approach, lower their tone, and measure their words. That's how respect is built, not by force but by presence disciplined by absence. The more unavailable you become, the more intentional your interactions feel. Every word you speak carries weight because you don't waste them. Every appearance you make feels significant because you don't seek attention, you command it. This is the paradox of power. The less you reveal, the more they project. And in those projections you gain control. You become whatever they imagine you to be, and imagination is far more powerful than explanation. The price of being unavailable is solitude. The reward is influence. You will lose the comfort of constant noise, but gain the serenity of control. You will trade shallow attention for deep respect, and as you do, you'll realize that you never lost anything essential. You only shed what was never meant to have access to you. To be unavailable is to move from reaction to creation. You stop existing in response to others and start shaping the rhythm of your own life. And when you reach that point, you'll understand why unavailability is not just worth it, it's necessary. Because nothing grows in the soil of constant exposure. You have to pull back to regenerate, to gather strength, to return sharper. Power needs silence to mature, and those who learn to disappear wisely always return stronger. There is a psychological shift that occurs when you stop being constantly available, both in you and in those around you. At first, you'll feel the pull of habit, the itch to check your phone, the guilt of not responding immediately, the small panic that maybe you're missing something. That's not real fear, that's withdrawal. You are detoxing from dependency. You've been conditioned to believe that silence equals rejection, that absence equals loss, that detachment equals loneliness. But as the noise fades, you'll notice something strange. The world keeps spinning, and yet it feels quieter, clearer, almost sacred. This is the beginning of internal power. When you realize that being unavailable doesn't mean being disconnected, it means being selective. It means you are finally choosing what deserves to reach you. The modern world is obsessed with presence, notifications, updates, replies, availability. They call it connection. But it's not. It's exposure. The more available you are, the less of yourself you have left. Every ping demands a fragment of your focus, every conversation a fragment of your energy. Eventually, your mind is no longer your own. It's a public square. Unavailability is how you reclaim it. It is not rejection of the world, it is reclamation of self. The price is isolation, yes. You will walk through days where you feel invisible, misunderstood, even forgotten. But that is the fire that purifies. It burns away the illusion that your worth depends on being seen, because what's truly valuable doesn't need to announce itself. Diamonds don't shout, they just exist, rare, silent, and desired. You must become like that, present only where your energy cannot be wasted. You see, when you make yourself scarce, people have to earn your time again. And that earning process reawakens the respect that overexposure destroyed. Familiarity makes people careless. When they think they can reach you any time, they stop valuing the privilege. But when they can't predict your presence, they start to remember your value. They become more intentional. They speak differently. They approach with care. That's the invisible power of absence. It reshapes behavior without a single word. Most people chase validation because they fear being forgotten. But the truth is, it's not the forgotten who are weak. It's the ones who are constantly remembered for nothing. Attention without depth is a counterfeit form of relevance. True relevance lives in memory, not in presence. It lingers after you've left. And that lingering comes only when you learn to walk away before you're taken for granted. The unavailable are remembered because they leave space for longing. Longing is the most powerful emotion in the human experience. It transforms indifference into obsession. That's why the more unavailable you are, the more you live in their minds rent-free. You're not chasing validation. You're controlling perception. But here's where most fail. They confuse unavailability with detachment born of bitterness. Real unavailability is not rooted in ego or revenge. It is rooted in peace. It comes from understanding that your value doesn't increase when others notice it. It increases when you protect it. The bitter withdraw to punish. The wise withdraw to preserve. When you master that distinction, your silence no longer feels like exile. It feels like command. You begin to feel the power of restraint, the simple act of not replying, not showing up, not explaining yourself, not reacting. It becomes an act of control. Because the moment you stop being predictable, you stop being a pawn. People start to move differently around you. They hesitate, they plan, they wonder. You are no longer part of the background. You've become the variable they must account for. That's psychological leverage. It's the quiet advantage of the unavailable. And that's why unavailability is expensive, not in material cost but in emotional discipline. It requires patience. It requires faith that those meant for you will understand your silence without demanding explanations. It requires a willingness to let others walk away. But here's the irony. Those who walk away because of your silence were never truly with you. They were with the version of you that catered to their comfort. The moment that version disappears, they reveal their dependency. Let them go. You are not here to babysit the insecurities of those who cannot stand stillness. You are here to master your energy. And mastery requires distance, because when you are too close to noise, you start mistaking chaos for connection. You start mistaking distraction for importance. You start losing the distinction between movement and progress. The unavailable understand that to move forward, you must often move alone. Solitude becomes their forge. It sharpens perception. It exposes who genuinely values them and who only values access to them. You will begin to see patterns, how people react when they no longer have constant access. Some will withdraw in resentment, others will rise in respect. Both reactions are data. Both reveal truth. That's the beauty of absence. It reveals what presence conceals. When you're always around, you can't see who's pretending. But when you disappear, masks fall off. The genuine remain, the needy fade, and the opportunists seek another source. That's the purification of silence. You no longer need confrontation to separate real from fake. Distance does it for you. That's why those who fear being alone never reach clarity. They keep themselves surrounded by noise, mistaking company for loyalty. But loyalty only shows itself when your presence is no longer convenient. Being unavailable gives you that clarity. You see who still stands when there's nothing to take. You learn that your absence is the most honest test of others' intentions. The ones who truly value you will wait. They will not demand access, they will respect your rhythm. Those are your allies. The rest are distractions disguised as connection. Once you see this clearly, you'll never fear solitude again. You'll crave it, because solitude is where you reset your energy. It's where you refine your purpose. It's where you stop being reactive and start being deliberate. You'll learn to move slower, speak less, observe more. You'll discover that silence has layers. The first is discomfort, the second is clarity, and the last is power. That last layer is rare. Few ever reach it because it requires total surrender, the courage to let go of the noise that keeps you safe. But when you reach it, you understand something profound. You don't need to chase power to have it. You just need to stop giving it away. Every unnecessary word, every impulsive reaction, every attempt to be understood, that's how most people lose their strength. You regain it by becoming unavailable to everything that drains it. That's when your silence starts speaking for you. It becomes your signature, your aura. People will begin to describe you as distant, mysterious, disciplined. But what they're really sensing is control. They are seeing someone who no longer operates from emotional chaos. You will feel it too, a calm authority that no one can imitate. You'll walk differently, speak differently, think differently. And those who used to command your attention will suddenly feel powerless in your presence. That's when you'll understand the full price of unavailability. You pay with loneliness, but you gain with reverence. You lose the crowd, but gain yourself. And once you taste that peace, you'll never trade it again. Because peace is the highest currency of power, and availability is how most people go broke. You will notice that once you stop being constantly reachable, the world begins to test your resolve. People will push against your boundaries to see if your silence can be broken. They will bait you with guilt, provoke you with curiosity, and tempt you with attention. They'll ask subtle questions disguised as concern. Are you okay? Why haven't you answered? But what they really mean is, why can't I control you anymore? Every time you resist the urge to explain yourself, you take another step toward freedom. Because the moment you start explaining your silence, you destroy its power. Mystery lives in restraint. The more you talk about your choices, the less authority they hold. The unavailable understand that words dilute power. Every explanation invites negotiation. Every justification opens a door for manipulation. And the truly powerful don't negotiate their peace. They protect it, quietly, relentlessly, and without apology. You see, the psychology of scarcity is ancient. The human mind equates rarity with value. That's why the less people see you, the more they imagine you. They begin to attach emotions to your absence: longing, curiosity, frustration. Each one deepens your impact. This is not cruelty, it's natural order. Because people only begin to feel when they are deprived. They need to lose warmth to remember its value. Your unavailability forces that awakening. It reminds them that access to your energy was never a right. It was a privilege. And privileges must be earned, not demanded. Those who fail to understand this will fade, replaced by those who move with intention. That's the quiet selection process of power. You no longer choose people, your discipline does. It filters your life without confrontation. The price is that you will sometimes be alone. You'll look around and realize that silence has become your companion. But that silence is not empty. It's pure. It's the absence of noise, of chaos, of pretense. It's the calm after years of emotional overstimulation. And in that calm, you start to hear your real voice again. You begin to feel what you actually want instead of what you've been told to want. You start making choices from clarity, not from fear. That's why being unavailable is not about rejection. It's about refinement. You're refining your focus, your energy, your environment. You're no longer reacting to the world. You are designing your world. Every moment of silence becomes an act of creation. Every boundary becomes a declaration of worth. The more you preserve your time, the more life starts to flow toward you instead of through you. People begin to sense that you are no longer desperate for attention, and that's when attention chases you. Because nothing is more magnetic than self-sufficiency. The world can sense when you no longer need it, and that indifference is intoxicating. It's the paradox of attraction. The less you seek approval, the more others want to give it. The less you chase presence, the more presence you command. That's why the unavailable always seem to glow differently. Their aura carries the quiet strength of someone who cannot be bought, someone who belongs entirely to themselves. You'll notice how different people react to that. Some will be drawn in by admiration, others will try to diminish it. The insecure will call you aloof, detached, arrogant. They'll use those words to protect themselves from the discomfort of their own dependency. But those who are strong enough will recognize what they're really seeing, or self-mastery. The unavailable operate on a different frequency. They do not chase, they do not convince. They do not beg to be understood. They move with calm certainty, and that certainty unsettles the restless. It reveals their lack of control. This is why unavailability often provokes resentment, not because it harms others, but because it exposes them. It shows them how easily they lose composure when denied what they feel entitled to. And entitlement cannot survive in the presence of discipline. So they'll project. They'll call you cold when in reality you are simply composed. They'll call you distant when in truth you are discerning. They'll call you emotionless when you are simply uninterested in chaos. Let them misinterpret. The moment you start defending yourself, you've already surrendered the higher ground. Power doesn't argue. It observes. It moves when it must. You must understand that the price of being unavailable is not paid once. It is a continual investment. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you're investing in your inner stability. Every time you say no without guilt, you're investing in your focus. Every time you disappear to recalibrate, you're investing in longevity. Because burnout is the disease of the constantly available. Their energy is scattered across too many screens, too many conversations, too many performances. They confuse motion for progress, attention for respect, exhaustion for importance. The unavailable don't live like that. They live by rhythm, not reaction. They move with intention, not impulse. They know that real progress happens in silence, behind closed doors, far from the spotlight. By the time the world sees the result, the decision has long been made in solitude. That's what makes them untouchable. Their strength is rooted in privacy. You can't sabotage what you can't see. You can't attack what you can't access. Unavailability is your shield in a world addicted to intrusion. It's how you stay centered when everyone else is chasing noise. It's how you maintain authority without speaking. But don't confuse unavailability with isolation. It doesn't mean cutting off connection, it means elevating it. You begin to attract those who speak the same silent language, calm, deliberate, purposeful. People who value space, not constant validation. You begin to recognize the rare few who understand that silence is not emptiness, but intimacy of another kind. These are the ones who won't demand explanations for your distance. They will respect it. They will mirror it. And together, you'll build connections that thrive in silence instead of fear. That is the reward for paying the price. You stop living in the noise of temporary attention and start living in the peace of timeless respect. You'll realize that the unavailable don't lose connection. They upgrade it. They don't withdraw from life. They refine how they interact with it. They no longer crave to be everywhere. They are content to be exactly where they are meant to be, fully present, fully powerful, fully silent. That's what most never understand. Power is not in movement. It's in stillness. It's not in shouting. It's in composure. It's not in being known. It's in being remembered. And those who are always available are never remembered. They are consumed and forgotten. But those who know when to disappear, when to step back, when to withhold, they linger in memory. They haunt the thoughts of others long after they've left the room. That's the invisible immortality of silence, and it belongs only to those who have the courage to be unavailable. In the end, you come to understand that unavailability is not about others. It's about you. It's about reclaiming ownership over your time, your focus, and your peace. It's about living life on your own frequency, instead of the constant static of demands, expectations, and noise. Most people live in a state of perpetual reaction, their emotions, their moods, their thoughts, all shaped by whatever enters their field of attention. They are prisoners of immediacy, but when you decide to be unavailable, you escape that prison. You stop letting the world dictate your rhythm. You begin to design your days with intention. You decide when to engage, when to withdraw, when to observe, and when to act. That decision alone separates you from the masses, because most people are afraid to be alone with their own minds. They hide in conversations, in screens, in relationships that numb them. They confuse connection with purpose. But silence will teach you otherwise. It will show you that connection without boundaries is self-erasure. The unavailable do not isolate out of fear. They isolate to preserve meaning. They know that every moment of attention spent on the wrong thing steals energy from the right one. They protect their attention the way a warrior protects his weapon, because they know it defines the outcome of every battle. The modern mind is scattered. The disciplined mind is sharp. And only the sharp mind can cut through illusion. That's what unavailability does, like it sharpens your perception. You begin to see through the noise. You start recognizing who truly values you and who values only your accessibility. You notice how easily people take for granted what they can reach. You begin to understand that scarcity is not cruelty, it's education. It teaches others that your time is not infinite. It teaches you that presence should never be given freely. Power grows in that awareness. You start walking differently, thinking differently, choosing differently. Your energy becomes heavier, denser, more deliberate. You no longer enter rooms to be seen, you enter to observe. You no longer speak to fill silence, you speak to shift energy. You no longer reply to be polite, you reply to be precise. Everything about you becomes measured, intentional, disciplined. That's the transformation the world will notice, but never fully understand. They'll see your calm and call it coldness. They'll sense your control and call it ego. They'll feel your absence and call it rejection. But it's not rejection, it's evolution. You've evolved beyond the need to be constantly needed. You've understood the rare truth that most people never discover. Being unavailable is not about hiding, it's about holding. Holding your energy, holding your standards, holding your peace. You no longer throw yourself into every situation because you've realized that not every space deserves your presence. You've learned that your attention is a gift, not an obligation, and that realization changes everything. People start to adjust around you. They become more thoughtful, more deliberate. They measure their words because they know your silence is sacred. They respect your time because they know your time is costly. They no longer demand your presence, they request it. And when you do appear, it means something. Your presence feels valuable again because it's no longer constant. That's how respect is built. Not by being everywhere, but by being rare. The price of being unavailable is that you will often walk alone. But solitude is not loneliness, it's refinement. It's where the noise of others fades and the voice of truth becomes audible. In solitude, you remember who you are. You stop performing. You stop pretending. You stop seeking mirrors in others. You start seeing yourself with clarity. That's why solitude terrifies most people, because it shows them everything they've been avoiding. But once you face that silence, it becomes your ally. It grounds you in a kind of strength that no applause can replace. You begin to feel unshakable. And that feeling, that quiet confidence, is the ultimate reward of unavailability. You no longer fear rejection because you no longer need approval. You no longer chase validation because you are whole without it. You no longer seek constant connection because your own company is enough. That's what true power feels like, the ability to stand alone without feeling empty. From that space, you become untouchable. Emotional manipulation no longer works on you because you are not addicted to attention. Social pressure no longer affects you because you no longer need to belong everywhere. The opinions of others lose their grip because your worth is no longer negotiable. You've turned inward, and in doing so, you've built an empire of composure. The outside world may continue its noise, but inside you are still, deeply still. That stillness radiates strength. People feel it when they're around you. They sense it in your eyes, your tone, your timing. They can't explain it, but they feel it. The weight of someone who cannot be moved by chaos. That's the unseen authority of the unavailable. It doesn't come from status or wealth or reputation. It comes from the inner order that silence creates. Once you taste that order, you'll never trade it for the chaos of constant access again. You'll realize that being unavailable was never about shutting people out. It was about creating space for what truly matters to enter. You'll attract depth instead of attention, peace instead of pressure, purpose instead of distraction. And the world will sense it. Those who move with noise will fade. Those who move with depth will find you. Because like recognizes like. The unavailable attract the evolved. The disciplined attract the discerning. The quiet attract the wise. This is the cycle of elevation. The moment you step away from the crowd, you begin to meet those who live above it. That's when you understand why the price was worth it. Because what you lost in attention, you gained in essence. What you sacrificed in noise, you earned in clarity. What you gave up in comfort, you received in freedom. The unavailable pay with isolation but gain immortality, not in fame, but in presence. Their influence lingers long after they're gone, because when they speak, it's remembered. When they act, it's felt. When they disappear, it's noticed. That's the paradox of silence. It echoes. And those who master it never truly vanish. So remember this. Unavailability is not withdrawal from the world. It is mastery of how you enter it. It is the discipline of showing up only when your presence will have meaning. It is the quiet art of holding your energy until the moment it matters most. That is how power survives in a loud world, not by shouting but by whispering at the right time. So protect your silence, guard your time, refuse to be constantly seen, because the less they have of you, the more they'll feel you. And when you finally decide to appear, they'll understand what your absence was teaching them all along. That silence isn't the absence of power. It's the proof of it. Subscribe, because real power doesn't shout, it whispers.